Greetings Zappers, hello and welcome back to Urbex Histories. Today should be an interesting episode of a site which has fascinated me since I stepped foot into it. And of course I'm talking about the abandoned school we visited a few weeks back, called Margaret Stancomb Nursery and Infant School. And the reason why this should be a good episode is because there's so much history behind this site, and it's also really well documented. Having been a school for the entirety of its life, it's one of the best documented types of buildings, with councils keeping records of past staff and developments of the site. Even when we went there was so much stuff left behind with names of students who went to the school. Unfortunately at the time I obviously didn't manage to research all of the past students, even though I did find a couple of them on Facebook and did contact them. But unfortunately none of them have come back to me as yet, so if I do manage to get a decent amount of information not covered in this video and some personal accounts from past students or staff, I'll be sure to do a follow-up. Anyway, for now let's get started. So the school itself was built in 1893 and unveiled on February 19th, 1894 as the Margaret Stancomb Memorial Infant School. The site was opened and paid for by John Frederick Stancomb, the son of John Perkins Stancomb and Margaret Stancomb, who the school was obviously named after. Very little information seems to be kicking around about Margaret Stancomb, except that she was the wife of John Perkins Stancomb, who was a woolen manufacturer and a JP, and I have no idea what JP stands for. If any of you guys out there know, then let me know. One thing I did find a little odd about their background was that they actually both had the surname Stancomb before they were married. John Perkins as the son of John Stancomb and Margaret as the daughter of William Stancomb. Although not immediately related, I suspect that maybe they were cousins or something like that, but of course that sort of thing wasn't at all uncommon back then, with the likes of arranged marriages still being a thing. But I have to say I was unable to confirm this as I could only find a birth date for their parents and nothing about their grandparents, which probably would have shed some light on the situation. Anyway, back to the school itself. The building originally was only 1,254 square foot in size, which was most likely just the main building, that when we went we didn't go into, but I did find some pictures online so you guys could see inside anyway. The school was designed for a maximum of 139 children and officially opened for business on the 23rd of February 1894, under its very first headmistress Leah Home, who unfortunately I wasn't able to find an image of. Pupils at the school were aged between 3 and 7 years old and had to change school by the 31st of April following their 7th birthday, which I have to admit would really suck if you had your birthday on the 30th of April. Originally the school was divided into different classes: first boys, first girls, second boys, second girls, and third, which was for the youngest children. But as the school grew and expanded, so did the number of classes. The school itself was an undenominational school, which means that it was not attached to any religious denomination, so it wasn't like a Catholic school or something like that, which I can imagine at the time was probably quite a rare thing. In 1908, for some reason, which is a phrase I really hate to use because I really want to know why certain things happen, and was unable to find the information that I wanted on this, the school was transferred over to Wiltshire County Council. At first I thought maybe it was because of the death of John Frederick Stancomb, Margaret's son, but he didn't die until 1920, so who knows. Maybe he was just getting old and felt it was time to pass it on. But what we do know is that it was indeed transferred to Wiltshire County Council, and they proceeded to expand the school building and erect a new building in 1931, which added an extra 8,754 square feet to the property. And this is most likely the building we actually explored when we went, the big long one. But before all this happened in 1922, Miss Home, the very first headmistress of the school, resigned and was replaced by M.H. Collier, who I also don't have a picture of. Woo! Most professional history show ever! So the reason behind the expansion of the school was down to the amalgamation of 3 schools into one. The other 2 schools, who were St Thomas's Infant School and the Parachow Infant School, had all of their children moved to Margaret Stancomb. Soon after that, World War II began and delayed the start of the school year in 1939. This was due to many evacuees being shipped out of London into the country to places like Wiltshire. Margaret Stancomb's school had a large group come from Woodford Green School in Essex, as well as other students who were taught in separate classes while they attended the school. And from this point on, during the war, air raids were a common interruption to the school day. And the summer holiday in 1940 was taken not as one long block, but as a series of long weekends. The following summer, the holiday was lengthened by the government so that children could help with the harvest, which, funny enough, is actually the original reason for the summer holidays in the first place. So all of you kids out there thinking you can just have some time off and lounge around in a onesie all day, at least go and help your parents mow the lawn or something like that. Respect the tradition. There are many accounts of what life was like for evacuees in Wiltshire at the time, not specifically from Margaret Stancomb, but from places all over.
At the age of 11 years, the government sent my brother and I down to Wiltshire as part of the Great Evacuation Scheme to remove children from areas likely to be bombed. Girls went with girls, boys with boys, so we were straight away separated. I attended the village school nearby where all the children of a wide age range sat together and were taught in one room. It was a pleasant life, even if one missed home and one's family.
I remember nothing of parting from my family. I have a sketchy memory of the train journey from Paddington, which was crowded with school children. I must have been very shy, as they told me years later, that when they took me back from the school I didn't say anything, nor did I cry. They thought this very strange. It was here, in their small kitchen, with a blazing coal fire throwing shadows across the walls, that I have my earliest distinct childhood memory.
But by May of 1941, the last evacuee had left Margaret Stancomb's school. After the war, the school continued on as normal, and in the 1950s, local police started carrying out road safety talks, which as far as I can tell were a bit like today when the police come and visit your school and let you look at the police car and try out the siren. The school also started the tradition of taking annual class photographs, which is good because it means I actually have some pictures for this particular section. The head of the school was also changed once again from Miss Collier after 28 years of working at the same school to Doreen Howard, and the school carried on like this for a while. In 1965, the school did open a kitchen and started serving for the very first time hot meals to those children who stayed for lunch, which was actually quite a late time to adopt this. After the war during the 1950s, many schools had started providing lunches, but it was most probably delayed due to the rural nature of Wiltshire itself, as it was much harder to get organised outside of the big cities. Besides, in some ways the children probably got off lightly, as school dinners in the 1950s were notoriously bad, due to still having food shortages from the war. Since then, the school hasn't really undergone any major changes. It was just the same as many other schools across the country. But if you'd like to see what it actually looked like during those years, go and check out the website, which is actually still up. There you could find a few details about the school as well as pictures and stories done by the children. But sadly in 2008 it was finally closed and merged with Parachild Junior School, which is now known as Belford Primary School. This happened in exactly the same way that some of the other schools had done with Margaret Stancomb way back in the 1930s. Although I will just note that every single reference that I found to why the school closed said that it was just amalgamated with other schools, but when we visited the site the police community support officer said that they'd found asbestos, and that was one of the reasons that they closed. This may in fact actually be true, but I couldn't find any reference to 100% confirm this, but it wouldn't surprise me considering it is such an old building. Very quickly after the closure, the council planned to use the site for new housing. However, before they had time to develop the site, they were contacted by the Wiltshire Rural Music School, who wanted to turn it into a community music school as part of their goal to keep instrumental music alive in rural communities. At first it seems like the council just ignored them. According to Glyn Bridges, a senior member of the music school, as he talked to Wiltshire Times, he said, "We have wanted to buy this building since February 2008, and the council just ignored us. It has since been vandalised and who knows what condition it is in now." The information on what happens next seems to be a little spotty, and I did contact the music school in an attempt to clarify what happened, but so far I haven't heard back from them. But according to a post I found on derelictplaces.co.uk, the local authority agreed they could have it pretty much free of charge. It was intended that the music school would reopen the building in September 2010. That did not happen. And in May 2012 it was announced that the music school did not intend to proceed with the transfer. Why not is uncertain. And since then the site has just sat there, forgotten and unused, as well as being the target of vandalism and arson. I have to admit that it is such a shame that this place has been left to rot, as there is 125 years of history in this place. It survived both world wars, and speaking as someone who has actually been to the site, it's actually in really good shape. Yes, it's been smashed by kids, but most of that is cosmetic. The building itself actually looks really solid, and I think turning it into housing would be such a waste. Hell, the local authority were willing to give it to a music school for next to nothing. Give it to me and I'll turn it into a museum or site or something, I don't know. But seriously, someone needs to snap this place up before they destroy a piece of history. Anyway, that's all I have time for in this episode of Urbex Histories, so let's quickly take a look at a few of your guys' comments. And the first comment comes from Urbex Connection, who says, "Nice vid." Thank you very much. The next comment comes from Exploring the Unseen World, who say, first. Again, seriously guys. The next comment comes from 101 Urbex, who says, thanks mate. You're welcome. I'm not sure what you're thanking me for, but you're welcome. And the last comment, which is hopefully a good comment, comes from Gamebreaker Mills, who says, third. So that's it from me this time. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and as always, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you again next time in episode 4. See ya! The school itself was, and get ready for me to mess up this word, an undenominational. The school itself was an undenominational school. Yes, I said it properly.